welcome everyone. My name is Tara Kyo and I'm a partner manager with SalesFroce.org in Europe. And I'm delighted to be kicking off the first session of the Unite Global Summit. So I'm here today with Steve Sanders, a go-to-market strategist focused on improving company performance and stakeholder value impact. Steve is also the author of 5 Horizons, How to Succeed in the Age of Stakeholder Capitalism. And his book will be released in 3 weeks' time. And this is the topic that we are here to talk about. So the world is changing. And as a purpose-led business, are you ready not only to embrace this change, but also to improve your business strategically by looking to new horizons? Now, before I hand it over to Steve, I would just like to remind everyone of the chat function in Zoom. Please feel free to post questions and we will get to the questions at the end. We should have about 10 minutes for Q&A at the end, and my colleague Nadia will be helping to moderate those questions. So over to you, Steve.
Thanks. So this is me. My name is Steve Sanders, and I live in London. I was born in Liverpool, though, and the accent's a bit strange. It might remind you a little bit of South African as you listen. I lived and worked there for a lot of my career, and I've worked and lived in over 20 countries in my life. As a strategist and professional nonconformist, I've been paid to design and evangelize new ways of doing business for over 25 years. And along that path, I've led small, medium, large, and colossal businesses to billions in gains. But today, I've spotted a very new challenge, and people I know are pretty badly equipped for it. So I decided I'd have a crack at joining the dots for them and simplifying this global challenge for as many people in business as I could. We'll get to that on the next slide. My business in general is to improve the valuation of companies. Sometimes the focus is breakthrough wins or changing the way businesses productize, sell, deliver. It all boils down to reverse engineering the best attributes of the highest value companies into clients' businesses, then setting them up systematically for scale success. So I've had the privilege of working on quite a few groundbreaking business turnarounds and accelerated growth initiatives. I'm now an entrepreneur. I'm a fellow of the Institute of Directors and ambassador at Warwick Business School, where I also guest lecture on their MBA strategy course. And I'm also on the advisory board of a couple of companies and charities. Now, as for today, as Tara mentioned, I love doing things interactively, and I'd have conversations with each of you. But in this case, flying solo online with so many people, it's going to be a bit difficult. So as already said, let's capture those questions in the feed. And I look forward with great relief to getting to the end of my slides and answering those at the end. So I'm here because of shared principles and purpose, something I share with SalesFroce, evidently. You see, like many of you, I know I'm good at what I do. But you see, there are a lot of clever people out there. Me claiming I'm really, really very good at what I do, well, that's not enough anymore. But because of my purpose and the principles I stand for, I'm here speaking to you globally today. So please remember that. And at the end of my presentation, consider the importance of being purpose-led in your strategy and in the strategy of your clients. So in the middle of 2021, I started writing a book. Now, doing this, I was thinking about people I work with, people I care about, but they wrestle with similar challenges. They need to grow the value of their companies, and they want to make a difference in the world. In other words, I'm good at what I do, but I need to differentiate. Otherwise, I can't grow the company and I can't increase its value to investors. I also want to make a positive impact, but I can't convince shareholders that it's urgent. And so stakeholders, they'll always come in second place, a distant second place compared to profit. When I started looking at this, I realized that all competitors seem obsessed with the same things, trying to beat each other on feature-based advantages. And the smart ones might talk about customers of theirs creating value or impact. Very few seem to have joined the dots that it's inevitable we're at a moment when positive impact or the absence of negative impact will become a necessity for business survival and fundamental for increasing market share profitably. The bottom line is to build company level value, designing valuation growth into the fabric of companies, which is our business. We know, and we now realize, this is absolutely only made possible by the second imperative, and that is to align everything we consume, produce, with the things people care about most deeply at a human level. These two imperatives will be kept in sharp focus throughout today. We need to activate personal accountability and business activism to solve the full spread of issues that we face globally. Governments won't solve the problems, but not at least without the public and business leading the solution, or at least a demand for the solution. You see, there's just no hope of a singular great genius and leadership from governments to solve all of this, not while big business taxes and political donations dictate their moral compasses. The public wants to buy from and to work for businesses that do better. And that is more than 75% of the public. It's easy to ignore this shift, but when ethical alternatives arise, then buying and employment choices will flood towards companies of principles and purpose and with evidence of doing more good. And this will be a determining factor in the age of stakeholder capitalism, far more than was the case with profit first and profit last shareholder primacy. But business, with the exception of ethically advanced outliers, business is and will always remain profit focused. So the Five Horizons book helps willing people to articulate that there is a great shift happening and it's reaching a tipping point beyond which there will be a business disruption of global proportions that kills those that don't keep up. There is a positive, though, for those who spot it. There is a means to become fit for their future competitive world, not for the competition of the past. Then to prove that will result in increasing profits and higher valuations. So this guides people to use strategic planning techniques in a simple and straightforward way. It helps this new source of competitive differentiation hit the ground at the right time and with the right level of curation in value chains to make sure companies do everything they can and should do to justify and dominate in their chosen ethical differentiator. The bottom line is that 200 million businesses can do something small, and that will change everything. And if they understand the competitive brick wall that they're racing towards, I believe then we will see creativity and investment. To me, Five Horizons is all about getting timing right for the coincidental shift of buying criteria and new sources of ethical competitive differentiation. And that will add fuel to the fire of market-wide transformation. So the rest of this presentation is to help you to understand and to articulate what this could mean for you. You can get started by learning to have empathy with the needs, principles, and values of all your stakeholder groups and how customers might value your qualities or punish your weaknesses in terms of commitment to factors such as environment, sustainability, governance, diversity and inclusion, or any number of factors that your target market could hold close to their hearts, that provides an opportunity for you to choose. That choice is to do more good or else not to bother. The greater the empathy you show to stakeholders and the better the impact you can achieve, or the more negative impact you can prevent, then the greater the loyalty you will gain. And that is among customers, employees, suppliers, and all related stakeholders. There is nothing more strategic than this. We come from an age of obsession with product excellence and shareholder profits. So coming from that starting point, you may lack some of the skills and perspective that you will need to make this transition. I just aim to help you succeed better. Some questions that need to be answered are, how do you affect stakeholders throughout your value chain and into the value chains of your suppliers and the value chains of your customers? Can you create new positive impacts? Or can you be the first to erase a negative impact? Is there a principle that's really important to you, your staff, and customers? Where in your business ecosystem will you find a source of maximum gravity that will pull you to mainstream success? Is that an opportunity to reinvent your company, to become more systematically ready for scale growth? Is this an opportunity to attach your brand to a principle that will influence up to 75% of the buying public? How far into the future should you look? And how far across interconnected value chains should you study? Then lastly, who can you invite into that thought process to help you unlock potential? Who could become an evangelist for you? See, pleading ignorance might allow you to survive, but only for a while. I think it's time to change for good, or else. So let's talk about future mindset. I want you to win. I know you want your business customers to win, but that will be in the competitive mindset of the future, not the past. So what is this future mindset? Let's rewind and go back a little. The idea of a limited liability company has only been around for about 200 years. It started in the US and then in the 1850s in the UK. So it was there to protect entrepreneurs from losing everything personally if their venture failed. As a result, it stimulated free enterprise and innovation, and that's a good thing. But human nature got in the way. As business grew so large, people became overly focused on the profit outcome, and they lost sight of their neighbors, of the effects their business had on suppliers, communities, the environment. It was also distant and impersonal. And now we're entering a phase where businesses must deal with this better. Let me explain why. It has a lot to do with human values. Now, human values now matter more than ever. Our global human organism is at a precipice of unparalleled existential threat, and the aging demographic is intensely motivated by this. The injustices put at the doorstep of business is under scrutiny. In a few years, millennials and Gen Z will be aged 20 to 50. So think about that. The most valuable employees and customers, their decisions, who they work for, who they buy from, that will entirely be driven by which companies they think deserve it. This approach recommends maximum involvement in a study of the interconnected value chains of your business, answering these humanity-level questions. In there lies the answers that are critical to your future. So onto the idea of a great shift. Beware the great shift. It is already happening. You see, markets move like the flow of a tide. To the idle observer, it looks like things will stay moving in the same direction forever until it changes direction. And by then, it's too late to get out of its path. Shifting attitudes of whole generations might appear to be unimportant in your business. And one day soon, it will become critical. In this case, the changes will be more immediate and across all sectors than even the internet was. But like the internet, it will take shape differently in every market. So this helps you to avoid being surprised, either by a competitor that moves and captures the mood before you can. The intention is that you achieve that first mover advantage. You will wonder at some point why this isn't visible yet. Now, I've been challenged by lots of people suggesting, humans are not likely to turn this into action. We collectively are too selfish, and that is a human tendency, this denial, actually. It seems natural to ignore all outlier opinions, even to label them as irrational, until one day that outlier trend becomes the majority. The issue is that urgency only increases when the pain potential reaches one's closest community. And the fear of that is greater than the fear of change. This illustrates, this picture here, how humans perceive how they relate to others. 5 immediate family, 15 you might confide in, 35 close friends, 150 you might invite to a gathering, 500 that you can remember how you met, and 1,500 you may or may not recognize on the street. At the existential precipice, its proximity to everyone we know will make this issue, or this connected series of issues, both urgent and important to everyone. So, having explained this idea of the great shift and the tipping point that we're reaching, there is a virtuous triangle of 3 actors: businesses and their ecosystems, customers and markets, and governments and regulators. You see, not only is the great shift happening in the minds of consumers and businesses, it's also being acted upon by regulators. These 3 actors move together to accelerate any such shifting norms in the world. So you'll be able to deep dive the principles of this and identify exactly how this may affect your market and when. The key point is that peaks of company failure don't happen at times of recession. It's proven. The history of business proves that it's more aligned with our failure to look ahead, our inability to see the shifts approaching, or our lack of will to act upon those market disruptions. If, as we suspect it will, the great shift results in a company mass extinction, it is worth acting now to influence who survives or dies. Being purpose-led. Now, purpose-led differentiation will be the most impactful. The very nature of purpose of companies is changing. Profit first and last, this idea of shareholder primacy, is yielding considerably to companies that build resilience and sustainability into every aspect possible in their value chains. So we'll see this affecting company laws and the liability of shareholders and directors. We need to work together to predict ways in which companies will need to morph their models and practices to become vehicles fit for the future state of what will be considered a viable norm in the future. There is much evidence from research that tells us this is not a matter of if, but rather when the markets will shift. The risks are huge. Companies are paying lip service and rely on consumer ignorance persisting. But just like 1990s emergence of the internet, many people brush this aside as a fad. As a strategic imperative, this is right up there with the biggest. I can remember boardrooms in 1995 debating, is the internet going to really matter in our business? I cannot imagine in 2005 any director keeping their job with that view. Now that's just 10 years. Those who planned in 1995 won the market. This picture is not just about sustainability strategy. This is about all new ideas. Get used to it. In this case, the shift is happening now. Yes, this is just another strategic analysis factor, yet it's one that needs a lot of creativity and vision. Shareholders will need to be sold on the idea that investing in doing the right thing will lead to more profits down the line. In reality, it is a requirement to ensure survival, not just increased profits. Company valuation, making your company more attractive for investors or acquirers. Why is one company more valuable than another? Do you know why? Because most people don't actually know why. If your vision is to spend 5 years building a company, or if you work for someone and ask them to spend money on your idea, it makes sense to maximize the company's intrinsic value, either to sell it for a greater multiple or to get investment and give away less of your shares. Our model reverse engineers the qualities of the most valuable companies into your company, its culture, process, structure, technology, and all aspects that can potentially double or even triple the owner's ROI. A company value is improved this way. The reality is your future competitiveness will be directly affected by how you deal with stakeholder interests. This affects securing and keeping the best employees, customers, and suppliers. It'll help avoid regulatory penalties that will start flowing soon enough, just to impose better corporate practices. Investors know this. That is why they're measuring investments based on environmental, social, and governance measures and long-term value impact of companies. We focus on overcoming the simple reality that those with stated stakeholder-aware purpose will succeed better. Those devoid of purpose, other than profit, will succeed less. Another key to company-level valuation is to be set up systematically for success, to be scalable without key persons being there in your unknown future of scaling. If you want to be scalable by design, you can't remain dependent on just a few top people. Whatever they do needs to be codified in a way that's capable of scaling hands-off. Otherwise, you'll always be limited by design. You'll find there are just a few use cases of processes, people, and technology that underpin your success. Now, these may be among the 5 or so bold steps to move your strategy forward, maybe digitizing key parts of the company. Somehow, the ideal ways of working need to be codified and put into the fabric of everything everyone does. Our approach keeps the spending down, complements on what's there already, and focuses on making impact. And that's by adapting, automating, and maximizing compliance. If you want examples of this, we've done really good work in transforming physical services into digital customer experiences, active business resilience to reduce ops costs and risks and make sure the business remains continuously available, and customer journeys fulfilled to elevate and scale services and solution sales, innovation lifecycle mastery that connects thousands of engineering and partners into co-invention activities. In all cases, though, digitalization was targeted to increase company valuation. Beyond your current horizons. So to succeed, you need to look way past your current time horizon, beyond your own value chain. The impact your company makes and the impact of your competitors, that is happening now, and it will be amplified in the future. Imagine how closely your shareholders examine profits. Then imagine a future when your impact is scrutinized even closer, the good and the bad too. This can get complicated, or you can make it terribly simple. Your activities affect your own value chain and the value chains of suppliers and customers too. All of that is an opportunity to differentiate competitively. It's also a huge threat of someone else doing the same before you do. So the 5 horizons model, we find the potential for positive impact or places to avoid negative impact across at least 5 interconnected value chain horizons and across 5 time horizons into the future. And this way you get to decide how to act upon that and when. So the journey will result in creating ideas for what purpose really resonates with your people and your value chain, and precisely what you will legitimately be able to lay claim to as part of your identity, value proposition, and purpose-led strategy. This needs to be treated like the development of any other strategic differentiation, respecting the proper strategic analysis criteria. You will receive the help needed to make the right choices that will maximize impact of purpose-led strategy in your business. So finding a source of gravity that can pull you towards mainstream success. Early in my career, I learned that no matter how good a product is, and no matter how good I am at selling it, that does not determine my success. And I'm talking here about mainstreaming and maximizing scale. And that won't come from just hiring more salespeople and pushing them harder. The secret is different for all businesses. The approach is to scan any ecosystem for the vulnerabilities or opportunities that exist there, to pinpoint where that point of gravitational pull exists that can drag any company to its maximum success. And remember, it's not about the value you enable, but looking beyond horizons, how you can be even more valuable in someone else's value chain in a future time horizon. Let's say someone buys you. They're probably buying your revenue and customer list, and maybe the quality of product they imagine will add to their portfolio. So essentially that means 2 + 2 = 4, and that's optimistic. Now, normally 2 + 2 = 3 or even less once all the shenanigans are finished. Our approach to technology and proposition development can create dynamic capabilities that offer an acquirer a multiplier effect on their whole business. So it's our position that your ethical differentiation can have a similar effect on brand value. So perhaps for them, 2 + 2 could = 8. But the bottom line is, it's not the models that figure this out for you, but it will be from the many people around you, and you need to learn how to involve them better. Think about nonconformists. Nonconformists and contrarians get a raw deal. That's always happened, but you need to be that person. The forces of denial will be against you, and I feel it in reaction to this message, actually, that I put out. But the truth is out there. Sorry to use that line. Resistance will be ferocious. You yourself could be guilty of this. That's when you narrow down viewpoints to ideas that you think fit into the current comfort zones. In this endeavor, you will need to find out things that are not presently being discussed. You will need to become the champion of change. You will need a crew of evangelists who create that vision with you and become part of implementing it. Our approach avoids suppressing that contrarianism and nonconformism. We encourage it. Therein lies the future. For you to succeed, you will need all of these insights and more. Your people and the people of your suppliers and customer markets are the primary instrument you have available to succeed in this. It makes sense to become more inclusive and to tap into the unforeseeable insights and capabilities that you might uncover there to create a perpetual strategy mobilizing asset among these people. Purpose drives performance. It's a simple formula. This research results on the screen here, if you can lean in and try and focus. Theory versus reality. So the top 6 reflect where executives believe purpose equates to performance. And the bottom 5 show that in reality, most companies are nowhere near ready. The opportunity is clear. Purpose makes companies more successful. In new product concepts and campaigns, internal transformations, employee satisfaction and therefore retention, customer loyalty and therefore retention, most executives admit that purpose is lacking. Strategy and organization is misaligned, and people and executives lack a shared vision of purpose. We are moving into a time where younger generations feel motivated and empowered, so their demand dictates supply. The tipping point is nearing when companies that fail to do good will fail to retain the best employees and the best customers, and ultimately might fail to survive. So ultimately, I believe this is a choice to decide to do better or else not to. And whether you see this as a threat or an opportunity boils down to how you react. You can choose to act now, or you can wait and see. So in my experience, being indecisive doesn't often turn out very well. I sincerely hope you will make the right choices. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Really interesting topic, and great to get your insight. I'm definitely looking forward to getting my hands on the book. So with just a couple of questions for you. So you've spoken about a number of things, but one of the things you've really spoken about is this great shift that's coming. So this change that's imminent. I'm wondering, is there any guidance out there from governments or from regulators for businesses?
Well, yeah, there is, and the difficulty that businesses face is understanding how to act upon that guidance. And of course, it's different for different governments as well. And some of the most precarious ecosystems in the world are presided over by governments that are in a state of denial still. And we've noticed, Australia's got a new government and they have a change of vision. Brazil, USA, these things move with the political flavor. One of the things that is difficult is how businesses can act upon that sort of deluge of information that's made available to them. It ultimately needs to be far simpler for them. And I think what people suffer from is waiting for government singularly to say, here is the answer. We're going to change one big thing and solve that big problem. And this is what we do as humans. We somehow internally think that, the world revolves around us on the one hand, and yet that we lack the power to do anything of global significance. And so, yes, whilst governments are saying things, they're limited in how immediate they can make impact, and they're limited in how they can translate those ideas to doable things. And I looked at this and I thought, well, you go to the other extreme, to the billions of people in the world, and what are we left with? Well, we're left with a recycling box on our doorstep and imagining that's going to change the world, which we know it isn't. And so somewhere in between there are the businesses. It's the choice of the business person, really, to look at those resources that are available. And what I try to encapsulate here is, it's not just doing it because you personally are a nice person. It has to generate profits. It has to make your employees more secure. It has to make your shareholders more profitable. And I do firmly believe that we're at a point where if you do this smartly, you can achieve all of those things. And that's the key element here, which I believe is missing at the moment. Business activism is missing, and personal accountability to ensure that business activism is initiated and seen through. And that is what's changing.
Yeah, businesses really do need to lead in this. And one of the topics one of the points you just mentioned there, you spoke about the need to really put purpose before profit. And this is a lovely idea. But do you really think that shareholders will actually accept the need to shed profits in order to do the right thing?
No. No. And I also don't think that is the leading principle at all. I think shareholders must consider profit. And directors must, and it's their legal obligation, right? I'm a director. I'm a fellow of the Institute of Directors, right? I understand this is not going to change in the next few hundred years, or if ever. And I think that the point is that they need to recognize what is going to happen to their profits if they don't do something. And they need to recognize that these trends are real and that the shift is very real. So where directors face an uphill struggle is educating their investors and educating their shareholders. And if it's an owner-managed business, kind of educating yourself and your family that actually this is a risk worth taking. And that is perhaps a small leap of faith. And that's why I don't believe in leaps of faith in business. It's never worked for me or anyone I've known. And that's why I ask people to translate this into hard strategic analysis. It's the kind of strategic analysis I teach at business school. And it's wonderful to see people in the Warwick MBA program. I use a case study that's not aligned with any of the industries that they've worked in. And it forces them to stop making assumptions, imagining that they know the answers. They're forced to use the strategic analysis framework. And the enlightenment that they experience is incredible. Now, all I'm saying to people here is, for heaven's sake, start using proper strategic thought processes. It only takes a couple of hours, right? I'll show you how, right? I'm pleading with you, save your shareholders Okay, do this proper strategic analysis, translate that into a timeline of business activism that is going to translate your purpose and principles and the good that you can do in your supply chain into competitive differentiators that will take market share and enhance your profitability. Please don't sink profits into wild madcap schemes that are often ill-conceived and don't actually have much of a benefit in the world's ecosystem. Yeah, because those those ideas that aren't thought through properly usually result in just wasted money, disillusioned shareholders, and a lack of impact where it really counts. So what I'm suggesting here is really take this seriously. Study how you affect all of the value chains that relate to you across your ecosystem, and find those vulnerabilities or those areas of harm that you can make different, and decide when you need to do something about it. Because remember, not everything can be done in one day, but everything can be done at the appropriate time. Yeah.
Right steps. And Steve, just one kind of final question for you in terms of having that purpose. Have you got any tips to get the whole organization on board and aligned with that purpose?
Yeah, it's actually it's a good question, because it goes along the lines of any big change. I've been involved in a lot of big change programs, right? It's any new concepts going into organizations. There's so many subjects that one could talk about in this. It helps to be inclusive, right? If you believe yourself to be the great leader with all the best ideas, and you can figure this out and just chuck it at people and they'll accept it, you're probably wrong. In fact, I know you're wrong. People might do as they're told, but they're not as enthusiastic as they would be, and they're certainly not going to be evangelical about it unless they're part of creating it with you. That kind of inclusiveness, and I'd suggest broad inclusiveness. So reaching out to those people that you think, hey, hold on a minute, we are having an effect in our customers' value chain, so let's get them involved. And what about our key suppliers? Let's find out what's going on in their environment and have an open and honest and frank discussion about this. And don't try and cut the conclusion of the strategic process. Leave yourself open-minded. Ask them to contradict you, right? Because that's when those nuggets come out. And I think I touched on it in a couple of parts of this presentation, but it really is, it's a grand act of humility to say, I've got some ideas, but hey, I'm waiting to be contradicted. I need people to come and tell me the way it is out there in the real world. And you'd be amazed, right? So that is actually, and the positive legend and culture that spins off from that is really quite powerful, because people do talk to each other, right? And then they start saying, actually, this came from us. This came from Maria in that department and Joe in that department, and they talk to their mates and their colleagues and exchange ideas and come back and enrich the strategy even further. And those are the people that you need to gain your nuggets from. You're trying to retain those employees. And if you don't do the things that they think are important, they're going to go and move to a company that is doing the things they think are important. It happened to my son recently. He just ended a whole career stream and changed direction completely because he wanted to have more purpose, more meaning, right? And the other thing is your customers are going to do the same. And who knows, maybe your suppliers are going to start trying harder for companies that they believe in and trying less for you. Yeah. So you've got to really do this, right? You've got to take this seriously, but embed it in a proper strategic framework so you know what you're doing. And when you present that to the people with the worried that their money's being spent in the right way, it's pretty convincing and pretty conclusive. Yeah.
And Steve, we do have a question in the chat, and I think you spoke to this on a company level, but Alexandra asks, sometimes feeling powerless prevents humans from acting. What are your go-to suggestions in bringing those suffering along the journey to help make the world a better place?
So maybe you could repeat that, because I missed some of this, the middle of it. Sometimes struggling to make what?
So sometimes feeling powerless prevents humans from acting. What are your go-to suggestions in bringing those suffering along along the journey to help make the world a better place?
Yeah, I mean, I've every time I try to explain this book and this project and this endeavor, the reaction I get from people is always starts with the word but, and they can't help themselves. And I've realized I have to be patient, and I have to be accepting of their the doubt that they feel, right, about the fact that it's surely impossible for this to be solved. Well, how is that so? I mean, the human being is a problem-solving mechanism. That's why we made it this far, right? We are awesome, but sometimes we're a little bit stupid. And so, through our momentary lapse over the last short while, we've fumbled a bit, but it doesn't mean people can't do something amazing. And I look back at the writing of a chap called Viktor Frankl. It's like the name Frank, but with an L on the end. And Viktor Frankl was an incredible psychotherapist and created a whole new model of psychotherapy. But he studied people who had lost all hope in life, okay, and started realizing the pattern of what caused some people to survive and in fact to move on and thrive in life, and what caused others to actually end, okay. And what it boiled down to was meaning, having a sense of meaning, having a sense of purpose. And it's that powerful. We as human beings, we need to have purpose. And if we don't, then all we are is consumers. And that's a very soul-destroying position to be in as a human being. So attaching people to something that is greater than themselves, whether it's family members, whether it's a community purpose, whether it's a grander sense of meaning in the world, is a hugely powerful way of taking somebody who's feeling lost and without the ability to move forward, and to turn that into a life of energy and positivity. And I really believe that. I've experienced it myself. I've coached people, I've raised kids, I've taken myself through these cycles, and I can tell you it really is, I believe in it sincerely.